My disciplinary background is engineering. Mechanical engineering was my undergraduate degree, and then for my PhD, I specialized in biomechanics. I think by talking to other students, to be honest, I certainly was not taught explicitly. I was fortunate to have a great lab group. Like my supervisor had quite a few grad students and postdocs and whatnot that we worked together on various research projects. So I kind of learned by doing and learned by asking others how they were doing it. I remember doing literature review for my dissertation, and it was a gold mine when you found a good review article that was fairly recent and cited a whole bunch of other things that were useful. But certainly, I was not taught in any formal way. I guess I could add that my supervisor's research group, we did have a journal club, so that was sort of a facilitated way of learning about literature and learning from the literature, but we still weren't really taught how to do the actual finding of the literature part. I think I would say trial and error. I did learn, who were the big names kind of doing work in areas that were related to my PhD, and I would search through their work. I certainly didn't get any formal library training or anything. We had a search engine, PubMed, which I used. This was before the days of Google. I'm dating myself now, so I would say I used PubMed, and I learned to sort of look up the names of other people who were doing similar work and kind of sort through their work and maybe who was citing them in order to find things. I was teaching in engineering at the time, and my first project was I started in 2009. I remember because I was at Mount Royal and we had a facilitated program to help scholars get started. But because in engineering there's a long history of engineering education research, and some of it is SoTL, I would say, as well. I was diving into that literature a little bit more. I think there was more of it, for one thing. I wanted to do a qualitative research study because I wanted to learn to do qualitative research. So I was looking through, what people were doing in engineering education research. And actually, I found a method that I thought I would like to use, the Think Aloud interview that somebody else had used in engineering education. And that seemed like a very, structured approach for a new to qualitative research person to use. So I ended up using that method for my first project. But it was really sort of there was no strategy at that time. I was essentially looking for something that, I think I could actually manage to do this myself. I don't think they would change that much if I was doing disciplinary research. I would say I'd take a multi-pronged strategy to literature review, but I don't think it would be any different if I was doing disciplinary research. And in fact, even though I'm not doing disciplinary research, I'm still searching through the literature sometimes in biomechanics because I teach a biomechanics course. So I would say I use the same strategies. I do a number of things in order to try to, stay on top of literature in certain areas that I'm interested in. So I follow certain people who are doing work that is related to mine. So, through Google Scholar, you can do that quite easily. That's very useful. I follow certain authors, people who cite those authors. I get notifications about those. And then I follow certain journals as well. And so when something comes up through one of those strategies, I might bookmark something or save it to read at a later date if I think it's going to be useful. I'll always read the abstract and then sort of decide, okay, wow, this is really pertinent to what I'm doing right now. I have to stop everything and read this. That's one thing. Or I might file it away to say, okay, this is related to one of my projects, and I think I need to read this a little bit later, but I don't have time right now. And then I guess when I am specifically trying to think through something or write something up, I would do targeted literature review, like keyword searches through Google Scholar, but also within certain specific journals. I would use keywords to do specific searches that way as well, once I'm ready to write something up. Well, I think the challenges would be just how much there is of it. I don't specifically stick to journals that have SoTL in the title, for example. So again, I would look at journals that have something related to teaching in the title. And then also, there's methodological journals out there. There are journals that focus on, certain theories. So I would do targeted keyword searches within those kinds of journals as well. So I try to read as broadly as possible and not just stay in what is called SoTL because it's formally in the title of a specific journal.